we call this hearing to order today, and today we're going to consider the recent challenges facing recycling programs in the United States and the potential solutions to these challenges. I will tell you, in the big story today in the Casper newspaper is today, and I see Senator Udall, today we're opening the recycling facilities that we have all around Casper that have been closed as a result of the coronavirus crisis that is affecting us and have been closed as a result for a number of months. So we're going to look specifically today at consumer goods, including paper, plastics, metals, and glass. And I would point out, in reading this article today in the Casper Star-Tribune, they said that we're not able to, again, recycle glass. We will be recycling paper, plastics, and others, but not glass. And it's interesting as we deal with this topic of recycling, what you can and can't and could and no longer can, and what we should in the future. So I believe we have a shared responsibility to keep recyclable materials and other waste out of the environment. In the United States, and state and local laws, not federal laws, govern recycling. That means that towns, cities, counties manage recycling programs. Local recycling programs can consist of curbside recycling, which takes place alongside weekly trash collections. These programs can also include drop-off recycling, which is what we have in Casper, Wyoming, which involves Americans taking their recyclable goods to one or more collection sites. And I will tell you, other members, that when I take them there, and as my wife has me dutifully sectioning things out, and we take the clear plastics and the plastics with color in them, and then the magazines, and then the newspapers and the inserts, and put them all in the different bins, that one day I was there and what looked like a big trash truck pulled up and lined up with each of the dumpsters and dumped them all into the same locations. And so I guess the only reason I'm actually moving them is because my wife says it's important that I do separate them out before I take them, but that's the way we collect them, but then when they take them beyond. So there are lots of interesting points to be dealt with as we learn more and more about how we and what we can recycle. Local governments typically fund recycling programs through the sale of recyclable materials and users' fees. While we're opening our recycling centers again in Wyoming, what we know is that it's now a cost to do it. It doesn't pay for itself, especially with the distances that we are from other communities. So for decades, communities in the United States sold much, if not all, of their recyclable materials for export to China. Chinese manufacturers were hungry for raw materials. Large cargo ships, which would otherwise return empty to China, often made it less expensive to export recyclable materials than transport the materials locally. But in 2018, China all but ended imports of mixed paper and mixed plastic. As a result, the value of the materials collapsed. In response, local governments have had to decide whether to raise users' fees or end, suspend, or scale back their recycling programs. And what we're seeing in Wyoming today is that there has been a debate at City Council. Should we end this program? It's an important program. How can we afford, what other public services will not be granted because of the money that's going to be used at the cost to recycle a program that used to pay for itself. When local governments end or suspend recycling, recyclables often end up in landfills. So this is something that no one wants to see. Another challenge facing recycling programs is the issue of contamination. Contamination occurs when consumers mix recyclable materials with material that can't be recycled, or material that can't be recycled locally. Contamination lowers the value of recyclable materials and can drain revenue from local recycling programs. When China imported much of our recyclable waste, we didn't have to worry much about that in terms of the contamination. China and other countries sorted our waste for us. Now that these countries have imposed import restrictions, we have been forced to confront contamination head-on. So state and local governments believe that if they can reduce contamination, they can find or develop new markets for their recyclable materials. Local recycling programs are responding in several ways. Some have launched campaigns to educate consumers about what can and cannot be recycled. Others have switched from single-stream recycling to dual or multiple-stream recycling. Others have invested in new technologies that can sort materials with greater sophistication. The private sector has also taken additional steps to boost recycling capacity here in the United States. Consumer product companies have pledged to use more recyclable materials in their products and in their packaging. Companies are making investments in what's known as advanced recycling. Advanced recycling is a group of technologies that use heat or chemicals to break down certain plastics and other materials. With traditional or mechanical recycling, plastics can only be recycled a few times and generally for lower quality goods. Advanced recycling allows plastics to be reused indefinitely. They also allow plastics to be used for other high-quality products. Advanced recycling won't replace traditional or mechanical recycling, but it can reduce the need to produce new materials. The COVID-19 pandemic has presented a new set of challenges. It's disrupted curbside recycling in many communities. 9 of the 10 states that have bottle and can redemption programs have, to this point, suspended these programs because of the pandemic. It's also contributed to the collapse in crude oil prices, which reduces the value of many of the recyclable materials. Finally, COVID-19 has called into question taxes and bans on single-use plastics. In its reopening guidelines, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention has encouraged restaurants to use disposable food service items such as utensils and dishes. So you're talking about plastic spoons, plastic forks, plastic knives, plastic plates as recommendations from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. California, Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, New York, and Oregon, as well as a number of municipalities, have delayed or suspended their bans and taxes on single-use plastic shopping bags. Some state and city governments, along with nationwide retail chains, have now even prohibited reusable bags. The pandemic has reminded us that the critical role that single-use plastics do play in protecting public health. To help us navigate these challenges, we have a panel of 3 experts who will help identify potential solutions for communities and companies alike. Senator Udall is also here, and he cares deeply about recycling and is here to share his thoughts with the committee. Before turning to Senator Udall, however, let me now turn to Ranking Member Carper for his opening statement.